if we're looking at the Big Ten, because again, this is the reality of our situation now. It still hasn't quite sunk in. Obviously, my flag still says Pac-12 on it until they start putting out official Big Ten merch. For that, it won't really set in probably. But if you watched the, as I did earlier, it was from about 16, 17 hours ago, Locked On Big Ten. And I apologize, I don't remember the host name. It's the first time I really watched it. Even his comment today, first segment of the whole show was, can Oregon win the Big Ten their year one? And he's like, I think they can. Like, outright. So what is the expectations for you gentlemen for Oregon in the Big Ten the first year? Because, of course, we do get to skip some teams. But we have to play, obviously you could argue, at least the top two of the four teams in the sense of we skip Penn State, but we have to play Michigan and Ohio State. One at home, one on the road. So what is the expectation? Is it a possible Big Ten championship in the first year, or at least the runner-up?
Well, and see, this has been part of the debate lately, the last few days in some of our spaces too, has been, with the new expanded 12-team playoff, do you want to get into your title championship game or not? Because if you go 10-2 and miss your championship, guess what? You're hosting a first round game at your stadium. Whereas if you go into your championship game and lose it, you may be on the road, or you may be, there's so many different variations. I'm always for, hell, run the gauntlet, go 12-0. But in this day and age with these super conferences, that's going to be extremely tough. But I feel the three toughest games on our schedule are definitely Ohio State here on October 12th, November 2nd, I believe it is, in Ann Arbor, and then the gauntlet of playing in the house, the Madhouse in Madison. That's always going to be a tough playing at Camp Randall, especially late in the year. You never know what kind of weather you're going to run into. So I'm hoping for a 10-2, maybe 11-1 in a Big Ten title game. I think it's definitely gonna be a 4-team race with Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan. I think Michigan kind of falls off a little bit this year. I noticed they were having some issues today as well. I didn't get a chance to get into it. It just kind of broke over the last few hours. Some people down there are now calling for Sharon Moore's head. I don't get it, but whatever. But they're going to be tough, regardless, because it's still Michigan. You got to play them in the big house, and they're going to remember. Their students may not, but some of their coaching and their alma maters and whatnot are going to remember the thumping we put on them the last time up there. So they're going to want blood.
I could almost echo that perfectly. I think kind of the same thing in my head. I could see Oregon dropping Ohio State's game. I could also see them winning it. Not saying it's a sure L by any stretch. I'm just saying there's a possibility that game's lost. There's a possibility Oregon could lose 3 games this year and still reach the Big Ten championship with just how these schedules line up with everybody. So it's like, because it's such a gauntlet, Spaz brings up a very interesting point. Like, you put yourself in a very interesting position. So say Oregon's sitting at 9-3 heading into the Big Ten championship game and they drop that. Does the playoff committee let in a 4-loss Oregon team, or are they going to reward some 2-loss team that just happened to not make their championship game, like an LSU, for example? Say it's Alabama, Georgia in their championship game. That's cool. And LSU sitting there at 10-2 or whatever. Well, how do you look at LSU at 10-2 and say you can't get in, but this 9-4 team can after a potential loss in the Big Ten championship? So it's a very interesting point you bring up, something I haven't really sat and thought about myself. In terms of expectations, I expect to be in the Pac-12 championship. I'm not saying I'm going to say. I think it's a little harsh to say I expect them to win it. Our Big Ten champion. We're all newbies here, all right. We haven't even.
No. Two of us caught that immediately.
I saw both your faces go. But I do expect to be in the Big Ten championship game. What the result of that is whatever. I also understand there's a possibility we don't make it just because the Big Ten is an absolute gauntlet this year. Going all the way down to 7 deep, like you have quality teams in this conference. Like the bottom half might be a little slouchy, but the top half is like you wouldn't look past anybody at the top. I think even us Oregon fans, like we understand Washington's taking a step back this year. That's great. But I think we would all be doing ourselves a big disservice if we look at the schedule and say, well, Washington's a surefire dub. Like that's not how rivalry games work. We've been a part of some in our previous history where we had no business winning and we did. And it goes the same for them, So it's like, I'm not even going to look that game off. There's not a game on the schedule aside from like Purdue. Sorry, I'm not a believer in the spoiler makers. But I'm trying not to look past a lot of these teams. Like there's some high quality teams on here, even a team like Maryland, you know what I mean? Like we should beat them, sure. But if they show up and we don't, we could be in a world of hurt. So I expect to be in the Big Ten championship, but that's where I'm going to leave it.
Well, and next year too. I mean, and we're not even talking necessarily the playoffs, but that's it. With the Big Ten, how it is with the new scheduling, you could have a 3-loss team going into the title game. And then when it comes to the playoffs, exactly, we don't know what they're going to look at next year, or with the new additions of super, quote unquote, super conferences, how that's going to play out. So that itself is going to be a whole interesting factor. I do think that, I mean, if not competing for the Big Ten title, I think Oregon at least would be like the 3rd team, like right there. But yeah, that's it. We get to skip Penn State, which I think, obviously is going to be a tough one. But yeah, playing Ann Arbor, obviously, and hosting Ohio State. And then, still having to play Washington. And you don't know, we know Jed Fish, but I think Washington will take a huge step back this year. But yeah, the other teams, like you said, Maryland, even, it's like Maryland looked pretty damn good. That's with their new QB. So, I mean, you just never know. I mean, that's why you play the game. Because if you project it right now, yeah, Oregon would be in the Big Ten title game. But that's why you play the game. Because shit happens. I mean, let's put it that way.
Even just looking at the schedule, like say we're talking non-conference, like Boise State, they're going to be a solid team this year. They return a lot. They brought in a solid class. They brought in Malachi Nelson from USC, so they have a very competent quarterback who is rated very highly coming out of high school and is going to have a real chance to like prove that he's exactly what his rating showed. You know what I mean? It's like that Oregon State, like they took a little dip in some of their talent pool, but at the same time, like they actually rebounded pretty well considering what's happened to their program. UCLA is down. Ohio State is Ohio State. Michigan, Maryland's going to be tough. As Spaz alluded to, going to Camp Rando. I've been there numerous times, and it's like it's never a cakewalk for anybody, no matter what that team is looking like at that point. And then Washington, like I said, if you overlook them, I feel bad for them. It's like you can't do that.
And UCLA, I do expect to take a potential step back because you remember Chip Kelly's still interviewing for NFL jobs apparently of some sort, whether OC or what.
He'll be there by spring ball. Something tells me. Something tells me there's issues going on down there, and he's trying to find a fast track out. If that means he has to take the Iowa OC position, I think
they have their OC.
Yeah,
Iowa signed their OC already.
Yeah.
So
I can't
I mean,
remember his name. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. But yeah, they already hired their OC.
from like Western Michigan, I believe. You don't quote me
I
on
think
it.
so, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a school like that, but
Yeah, but if you're Kirk Ferentz and a guy like Chip Kelly comes calling you, hey,
Also depends on money, of course, because Chip is making pretty good money there, and he likes LA. So it would take a bit to drag him away. I don't think he would take a downer to go live in in Iowa. No offense to
Iowa City,
Iowa.
Iowa.
Yeah,
I've
no
been to
offense to
Iowa
Iowa.
City. It's not worth visiting, man. Unless you're going to a college football game, that's like you ain't doing shit in Iowa City, Iowa.
All right, we just pissed off all the Hawkeye fans. Congratulations
It
there.
doesn't mean I don't like the Hawk. I mean, I don't like the Hawkeyes. I'm sorry.
Erica, calm down, calm down.
Sorry. Poor Iowa fans. They haven't seen more than like 12 points scored in like 4 years. I get why they're upset. It's fine. They can be upset.
Jesus. So, anyways, if we had to take an over under right now, and we're going to get into a kind of what we're talking about with the power ranking stuff. If we had to take an over under right now, next season, after kind of looking through it, I mean, I don't know, what would be your win loss total for the Ducks next season? It's tough because it's hard to project, but if you had to make the best guess.
Personally, to feel comfortable, I would go potentially 10-2 on a high side. I mean, sure, there's the possibility you could go 11-1. I mean, who knows? We college football is crazy. You never know how things work out. It's just that Ohio State game's a tough one. Going to the big house, that's a tough one. The Badgers and Camp Randall, that's going to be a tough one. There's a lot of tough games on the schedule, so I think there's a real possibility they drop 2. So to tamper expectations, I'd say, that 10 win line, you could take the over, under, whatever you like, but I think that's kind of where my current expectations are. But who knows, man? Like I said, there's a possibility they go 9-3. There's a possibility they could go 11-1. We have zero idea.
And it's really hard to rank or rate teams right now before spring ball. We know who's going to be here, who's not going to transfer in, transfer out, but I believe this team legitimately should go 10-2, if not 11-1. And there's a 5% chance that this team can run the table this year. I mean, it would take, some pure madness, but I believe that there is a shot if we win that Ohio State game that now maybe you go into Ann Arbor undefeated, and who knows what happens there.
Well, that's the whole point. That's why it was more of a hypothetical question, just like the projection, because that's it. We don't know what's going to happen yet. But it's like the three of us are just like syncing up in bad ways, because that's where mine was about 10-2. I could see us dropping like Ohio State, and then maybe dropping, a random one here or something like that, kind of burnt out, whatever. But we do have 2 buys this year. So it's hard to say. 11-1 or 10-2 definitely, I think, is very feasible. But again, that's why we play the game. That's why it's played on the field, not by ranking projections, because otherwise Georgia would win every national title every year.